Hello there. Welcome in to a Thursday edition of the show. Great to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations where you can get crystal clear, uninterrupted streaming audio of the show. Those two apps are free to download, free to use, and they are both sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Well-Being for All. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program. Corey Roldan will be my guest in hour number 2, but the rest of the time is for you and me at 719-24/7-1313. And we start with the bad news, I suppose, of the day. What's going on with the Denver Nuggets right now in these injuries? It's bordering on the absurd. Now, the Nuggets aren't the most injured team in the league, believe it or not. In terms of man games lost, they are not. That is OKC, Indiana have both. Obviously, the Halliburton thing being a common through line and Jalen Williams being out for OKC bulks that up a little bit. So they're not the most injury-riddled team right now in terms of the number of games that guys have missed. But I think, it's one thing, and we saw this with, well, gosh, we've seen it with a lot of different players, but let's just take this spell with Nikola Jokic. Right? You learn to deal. Right? As unfortunate of a situation as it is, and as negatively impacted as your team is, you learn to live with it. You learn to game plan around it. The rotations, players know, okay, I got to step up and do this because this guy is out. Why it's bordering on absurdity with what the Nuggets are dealing with in terms of injuries is because it's a revolving door. And we just, forgive me if it sounds like I'm repeating myself, we're having a very similar conversation to what we had yesterday because David Adelman talked about the difficulty of dealing with all the injuries. And now here are two more with Peyton Watson leaving the fourth quarter of last night's double OT loss, 134-127 to the Knicks. And then Spencer Jones got a concussion in the first quarter. So back-to-back days now, the main point of conversation with the Denver Nuggets is injuries. But it's the revolving door. Christian Braun was in, then he was out. Then they brought him back, not quite ready, now back out, and now he's back in for a couple of games. Aaron Gordon, same way. That's what makes it so difficult to navigate. We've seen teams rally. We just saw the Denver Nuggets without the best player in the world. Nearly, what were they, 10-6? So athletes are conditioned that next man up mentality, but when the next man up changes on a game-to-game basis and you think that you're done with the next man up because the guy that holds down that top spot is back, you're like, okay, cool. And then somebody else gets hurt. And that's the life that the Denver Nuggets are leading right now. In, out, in, out, in, out. And you have no idea the emotional toll that all these injuries have on a team. It's an Office reference if you didn't pick up on it. And all this is happening too at a time like this, just this week, like the worst possible time. Because they're taking on the number one team in the West, number one team in the East, followed by the number two team in the East. So it's not a great stretch to be dealing with all of this because you're playing good basketball teams. Here is David Adelman reacting to the latest injuries, which are, again, Spencer Jones with the concussion, Peyton Watson with the hamstring, and David Adelman quite honest here with his assessment of the situation.
Just seeing so much of this year. I just feel bad for the guys in the locker room. Like it's deflating, when you keep seeing people go down around you when you're trying to build towards something.
And that's what they're trying to do, right? There's still so much new with this team, with Valanciunas and Hardaway and kind of the emergence of Peyton Watson. It's almost like he's a different player. And Spencer Jones. They're trying to build themselves up to be a worthy opponent for the Oklahoma City Thunder to try and win a title, try to dethrone them. And he can't get any continuity. And once again, I have failed to mention Cam Johnson, who is continually the forgotten man in all of this because you barely got to know the guy and see him in the Nuggets jersey. And then he's out. And you just wonder, how much time is this team going to have together before the playoffs roll around? And that's the thing, right? All of this right now is frustrating. It's, in David Adelman's words, deflating. But you look to the longer term and you say, you know what? If all these guys are available down the stretch and into the playoffs, then it's all still possible. And I agree with that sentiment. When the Nuggets are healthier, much healthier than they are right now, then everything we talked about this team possibly being able to accomplish is still on the table. But you wonder now two things. One, you wonder when we're actually going to see the team together to start to really draw some conclusions about what is possible for them. And then the other thing, too, is I talked about this last week. At what point is there a psychological aspect to this where you're going, yeah, I just don't know if they're ever going to be healthy. And every day we inch closer to that with the Denver Nuggets. That you just wonder, and now, and no word yet on Peyton Watson and how long he's going to be out, but you're well versed in this. Doesn't this feel like 4 to 6 weeks? Everybody else is. Aaron Gordon's 4 to 6 weeks. Christian Brown was 4 to 6 weeks. Nikola Jokic was 4 to 6 weeks. So it just feels natural that Peyton Watson is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. And now we're talking, because February's not is the month it is, and it's short. I mean, we're talking middle of March with a month left in the season, which is about, I did the math, 14 games. And by the way, 14 games that only one of them are against a team that you actually care to watch the Nuggets against. Meaning and I don't know what the deal is with Cam Johnson, but putting him aside for a second, Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson, let's just take those two on this 4 to 6 weeks timeline, if that is indeed how long Peyton Watson is going to be out. You have 2 matchups with OKC within that time span. You have a matchup with the Rockets. You have a matchup with the Spurs. So when this team is healthy, it's a stretch that includes a couple of games with Utah and Sacramento. And there's not, there are only so many games that you watch the Denver Nuggets and say, this is of real consequence. So I want to see how these two teams match up. All these other games, it's just more the macro view of it. The emergence of Peyton Watson, how much better the bench is, how Cam Johnson fits in. It's all longer term when they play, Washington and Indiana and Utah and Sacramento and these teams. It's not about that particular matchup. But when it's OKC, Houston, Minnesota, San Antonio, New York, and Detroit. It's like these are the teams that you legitimately want to see how Denver matches up because you can foresee them matching up with them at some point in the postseason. So you could still take that macro view of things and assess this team down the stretch if they are healthy, but you're not seeing them against other teams that you're going to be deciding whether they can beat them in a 7-game series. It's all going to be hypothetical. It's like the conversation that's been going on, honestly, over the last month. Nuggets are missing all these players. When they get them back, maybe they're better than OKC. But at best, you're going to get one game before the playoffs begin in which you can see the Denver Nuggets potentially at full strength going against Oklahoma City. So that, and it just adds to the frustration. Again, if they get them all back and this Nuggets team is healthy going into the postseason, that's what matters. But you would like, preferably, to be able to see it a few times before the regular season ends. Here's the other consequence of what's going on with the Denver Nuggets right now and the great irony of all of this. The Denver Nuggets, when Nikola Jokic got hurt, you looked at the schedule and you had February 1st marked, right? That first matchup with OKC. But if you look past it, you saw matchups with Detroit and New York. This stretch that they're going through is not an easy one. It's one of their more difficult stretches in terms of the quality of teams that they're facing. But the idea was, well, they'll get Jokic back for these games. And you looked at the teams that they were playing leading up to February 1st, and you're like, okay, maybe the Nuggets can survive here. And they, to their credit, they not only survived, they in some ways thrived. All they lost was one game in the win column, not even in the loss column. OKC just had one more game during that stretch than the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets lost almost no ground to OKC, did not slip in the standings one bit the entire time Nikola Jokic was out. And just in the last, not even a week, all of a sudden the Denver Nuggets are now, instead of 5 games back in the loss column, they're now 7 games back in the loss column from OKC. Obviously matching up with them and losing hurts. They didn't drop in the standings. They're still third. But here's the other part of it. What my hope was for the Denver Nuggets going into the stretch without Nikola Jokic, just don't go to the play-in. That was my one thing. That was the bar. Just don't fall into the play-in. Nobody in the NBA wants any part of that mess. And the Nuggets, without Nikola Jokic, were able to stay at a comfortable distance away from it. Not anymore. They're what now? They were 3 games up. When Nikola Jokic came back, they were 3 games out of the play-in. They're now 1 game. They're now 1. So my worst fear is now being realized, ironically, with Nikola Jokic in the lineup each night. So now I guess I have to rephrase it and say, even with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, the Denver Nuggets just can't fall into the play-in. It sounds absurd, but look at what is happening. Now the schedule is going to lighten up and you have a little bit more confidence that the Nuggets can navigate it. But this week has been incredibly punitive because of the quality of teams they've played, and it's exacerbated the frustration from fans, players, and David Adelman alike. Nuggets lose 134-127 in double overtime to the Knicks, but more importantly, lose both Peyton Watson and Spencer Jones to injuries, joining Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson now as the group of Nuggets injured. 719-24-7, 13-13. Take your thoughts. Maybe just a well check is what should be done today. Just how you feeling, Nuggets fans, with all of this. I guess there is good news, though, in terms of the team across the hall at Ball Arena as the Avs close out the first part of the season before the Olympic break on a high note, but they hit rock bottom in one way. Get into that next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Hey, fellas, Valentine's Day, you know this. It's basically the 2-minute drill of romance. And Louisa Graff has the perfect game plan because they're giving us a lab-grown diamond heart pendant to give to you. It's worth $299, and you can enter to win it at extrasports1300.com or kvor.com, but make sure you get in there and enter by Sunday. So everything feels a little bit better if you are an Avalanche fan. Now, they win last night 4-2 against the San Jose Sharks to go into the Olympic break on a high note. Here is Jared Bednar on what worked for the boys last night.
We needed to get in attack mode a little bit more 5-on-5 and then not play it so safe and get our D up and involved. And we did that from the start of the game. I loved our first two periods. Obviously, we had a dip at the start of the third, but really it was one lucky play, like we're doing the right thing. It goes off a stick, goes in the net, and then we make a couple mistakes after that to capitalize on one of them. But you got to regroup. You got to find a way to dig in and get back to your game as quick as you can. And I thought we did that and ended up winning the hockey game.
And look, the Sharks aren't your older brother's Sharks. Like, they're a much improved team with Macklin Celebrini, and now not a team on the level of the Avalanche. I grant you, it's not a win against Dallas or Minnesota going into the break. But, it is a solid win and a solid performance from the Colorado Avalanche, a team that I wouldn't discount, what has gone on over the last couple of weeks. So to say, the Avs needed that result. And Josh Manson, after the game, talked about it. Like, they weren't playing their best hockey. So the team understood that a win going into the break would matter, right? And I'm not talking about, the struggles of this team being a sign of things to come. I do think they'll come out of the Olympic break and they'll look more like the team they have been for much of the season. But you just don't want to say, go into that Olympic break and just with another loss and be like, oh, well, right? Even if you would have confidence coming out of the break, you still want that win. Just leave a better taste going into the break. Feel like, okay, everyone can take a deep breath, feel decent going into the break, and then hopefully hitting the ground running coming out of it. So I don't look at last night as nothing that the Avs were able to get a win last night. And I think that the players admitted as much, that they kind of needed it, because this is a group that doesn't sit well with them. Right? They're not a group that goes through stretches like the one they'd been on. So it's a team with very high standards, and they simply weren't meeting those standards, and they get a little bit of that back last night by getting the 4-2 win. But something happened last night that is, in the longer term view, remaining a cause for concern. The power play, after going 0-for-3 last night, and there's some nuance in there because not all three power plays were full power plays. Okay, but they don't count half power plays, or you only played 59 seconds of one. The Avs went down 0-for-3 on the power play last night. And now they have the worst power play in the NHL. The worst. So they are actually trending in the opposite direction. All this time, it's like, well, if the Avs just got up to like middle of the road, right, then it would be okay. They continue to fall. It's getting worse. And they've changed some tactics a little bit. The system that they run, just because, in large part because Marty Necas has been out, and he was out last night as well. Still going to be good for the Olympics, as is the case with Gabriel Landeskog, in case you were wondering about that. But they've changed their formation and what they do on the power play the last couple of games. So I don't know that these last couple of games without Necas are really like the ones that you really need to get in there and do a deep dive on, because it is reasonable to think if you change what you do on the power play like that because of personnel, that you should get a little bit of time to work through it. But that's not excusing what has gone on prior. And I don't think that they're going to keep this. They'll get Necas and Landeskog back after the break. They're going to go back to running their system. But with them going 0-for again on the power play last night, despite scoring 4 goals, it is the great conundrum of the NHL season. It really is. How a team that is as good 5-on-5 is this bad, that now we have, right before the Olympic break, we have the Avs on opposite ends of the spectrum. There is no team in the NHL that is better than them 5-on-5, and that now there is no team worse than them when the Avs have an extra skater, when it is 5-on-4 with the Avs on the power play. That is wild. How can this be? And there are a few reasons that people have pointed to. Eric Johnson pointed this out the other day. You know, you don't have Mikko Rantanen, and he kind of throws off the balance that you had on the power play, right? Because Mikko Rantanen being the left-handed shot, you put him on one side, you put a right-handed shooter on the other, and now you can freely move the puck to and fro, and you have a real shooting threat, goal-scoring threat on either side. And, by the way, Mikko Rantanen was elite when it comes to sniping on the power play. And it's a great point by EJ, and okay. I think that is valid. The Avs are the worst power play in the league, still with some combination of Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Marty Necas, Valeri Nichushkin, Arturi Lehkonen. Like, Mikko Rantanen is part of the story. He's not all the story. You can't tell me that it's just because they don't have Mikko Rantanen that the power play is this bad. Because if that's the case, then maybe we need to re-adjudicate this trade. If it was going to cost the Avs so much, because yes, they're deeper, but 5-on-5, are they infinitely better without Mikko Rantanen? No, but you like the depth that they have. If it's going to cost them the ability to ever produce anything on the power play, then maybe it wasn't worth trading Mikko Rantanen in the first place. So that can't be all. That can't be the sole reason why this isn't working. And I said it when they hired him. I don't know that the ideas from Dave Haxtell that he's bringing over from Seattle are best suited to improve the Avs power play. And lo and behold, we see the Avs getting worse on the power play than they were a year ago. Ray Bennett was the scapegoat, if you will, of another playoff loss to the Dallas Stars. I don't know that they upgraded. And I guess stranger things have happened than firing an assistant less than 1 year into his tenure. But I don't think that the Avalanche are going to fire Dave Haxtell. And also, right in the middle of the season, who are you going to get? Right? And this is not Dave Haxtell is good and who you're going to get that's better. It's who are you going to get? Nobody's available. You're in the middle of a season. So it's kind of like the Nuggets injuries in that the Avs are only slightly less powerless to fix it. Right? Injuries we know are random and a lot of bad luck goes into guys getting hurt. The power play is somewhat in the Avs' control, but I don't know if the people that are in charge of it, the person in charge of it, and the players on the ice are capable of turning this thing around. I think we're going to come out of this Olympic break and feel good about Gabriel Landeskog back and Nature's back, and the Avs are going to win a ton of games, and they're going to win the Central, and the road to the Stanley Cup is going to go through Colorado. But there will be this nagging voice in our heads and say, when is the power play going to cost them? Because now it's inevitable. I just don't see that over the Olympic break that, I mean, I think Jared Bednar said he was going to Hawaii. Like, if you're an Avs fan, you would prefer that the coaches stay in Colorado and really figure this thing out over the next few weeks, but they're, I suppose, entitled to their time off. But I think it's getting to the point now that it is inevitable that the Avs are not going to turn this around in a meaningful way before the end of the season. And they're going to go into the playoffs, and this is going to be their fatal flaw. And can they navigate their way to a Stanley Cup with this aspect of their game being so horrendously bad? I guess the one thing that you feel that should give you a little bit of solace if you're an Avs fan is that they are generally not as loose with the whistle in the playoffs. So the fact that the playoffs are a little bit tighter checking and they let a little bit more go might actually work in the Avs' favor because teams aren't going to be taking penalties. And as I'm saying this, I feel like I'm going cuckoo because it should be a death sentence for an opponent to go down a skater to the Colorado Avalanche. But here we are. This is going to be the flaw of the Colorado Avalanche, and it is not going to change drastically between now and the end of the season. And it's just, can the Avalanche navigate their way through without this aspect of their game working? And if you recall, there were two things that ultimately bounced the Avalanche from the playoffs. One was the fact that hell hath no fury like Mikko Rantanen scorn. Right? You ran into the very guy that you said you didn't need anymore, and he got his revenge. Does he still feel pretty sore about the whole thing by the time they play each other in the playoffs? We'll see. But the other aspect was special teams. That's why Ray Bennett got fired. That's why Dave Haxtell got hired. Because the Avs on special teams were not good enough to beat Dallas. And right now, they don't look like they're better on special teams than they were a year ago. The numbers say they're worse. I think, like the Nuggets injuries, It's just something that they're going to have to live with. And the question ultimately becomes, can they overcome it? 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Avs as they head into the Olympic break. 8 Avs players will be representing their respective countries, so you'll get to see more of the Avs during this break, but they'll be playing for different teams. Coming up next, we'll get back to the NBA. The guy that we were promised would be traded did not get traded. But why that's not on Shams Charania, it's on the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. The NBA trade deadline has come and gone, and the guy that everyone was waiting to be traded did not get traded. Giannis Antetokounmpo is still a member of the Milwaukee Bucks, and Giannis has no one to blame but himself because he has bungled this so badly that he is turning into the very thing that he did not want to become. The whole psychology with Giannis, because let's be real about this. He's wanted out of Milwaukee for 2 years. Okay? Really, in his heart of hearts, he wanted out of Milwaukee 2 years ago. But he also didn't want to be the bad guy. He saw LeBron and AD and even, Paul George to a lesser extent with the whole Oklahoma City situation. And he said, I don't want to be that. I'm universally beloved. I want to stay that way. And you know what? Human to human, I get it. But if you want out, if you want to use the power that you still have as one of the best players in your league and the face of that organization, if you're going to exert that, you got to exert it all the way. You got to go all the way. And you got to say, get me out of here. Because now what the Milwaukee Bucks are doing is they've convinced themselves that they can save their relationship with Giannis. In fact, yesterday, I saw reports coming out of Milwaukee that Milwaukee feels like, and I hope you're sitting down for this, that they can get lucky in the lottery to keep Giannis, that they can win the NBA draft lottery and give Giannis a young player, maybe it's DeBonsta from BYU, and Giannis will go, I want to stay because we got something going on here in Milwaukee. Think about how silly that sounds. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to let it ride on the NBA draft lottery? Although, as I'm saying that, this is not like you and I playing the lottery at our local convenience store. This is the NBA draft lottery, which wink, wink, nudge, nudge seems to go the way of certain teams when they most need it. Dallas Mavericks getting Cooper Flagg, Knicks getting Patrick Ewing, so LeBron going to Cleveland. Thank you, Ray. It's so funny how it just, all these teams that are perpetually in the draft lottery and not the ones that don't build a new practice facility or aren't the hometown of the top prospect or just happen to make the worst trade in the history of American sports, they just suddenly end up with the number one pick. It's really bizarre. At a later time, I will, if you haven't heard, I will go back through the last now 40 years of NBA draft lotteries and tell you how it could have been rigged and why the team that won the draft lottery won it. I'm not a conspiracy theorist except for that one. So I don't know, maybe the Milwaukee Bucks will win the NBA draft lottery, but that's a ridiculous thing to leak out to the press. Sources close to the situation think that the Bucks can win the NBA draft lottery and keep Giannis Antetokounmpo. So what's happening, because Giannis just won't do the thing. He just won't say the words, I want out. Even though he's gone at it in 80 different ways over the last 2 years. I'm ready to discuss my future. And maybe I'll have to contemplate my future. What did he say in that magazine article, which really started all this, the New York Times? Like, he's hinted at it 18 different ways, but has never said the words, I want out. So the Milwaukee Bucks, and who could blame the Bucks? They haven't had a player even close to the caliber of Giannis since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and they're just going to give that up because a guy is kind of half-ass asking to be traded? Absolutely not. So the Milwaukee Bucks are not going to just trade Giannis just to be done with it, right? And nobody out there had a decent enough trade package to offer Milwaukee. So I put no blame on Milwaukee and all the blame on Giannis. Well, yeah, I think because Milwaukee made some really bad, the Damian Lillard thing, like, look, we all thought it was going to work, right? Damian Lillard got hurt. No one could have foreseen that. The Miles Turner thing, I think we could have saw that wasn't quite going to work out the way that Milwaukee. Now, I didn't expect them to be as bad as they are this year, but I certainly didn't think adding Miles Turner was enough to push Milwaukee over the top and become an NBA champion again. But Giannis, because of the way he's tiptoed around this, in the meantime, the Milwaukee Bucks have destroyed the roster around him, trying to cobble together any series of moves and bringing it to Giannis and say, do you approve of this? How about this? Does that make you happy? Will you stay now? And the Milwaukee Bucks now have to ask for the moon because they have no trade. They have no young players to build around. They have no draft assets. They've given up all of them in order to appease Giannis. And that's why no one could trade for him today, because nobody has all that. I mean, think about what Milwaukee was asking for. Draft capital and a young player to build around. Like, what? You think you're going to get Cooper Flagg and a bunch of... Dallas might do that. Who knows? But there just wasn't a fit out there. And the summer is always a better time to make these sizable trades, as Dallas would attest to. Middle of the season, you're not going to get as much as you would if you traded somebody in the offseason. So Milwaukee's a little bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable, apparently. But this is on Giannis. Just say that you want out. It's worked before. It will work for you. But he's unwilling to do that. And then he compounds the issue. This shows an like, by the way, we're all wise to all of this, right? What I am telling you is not a shock to you. You've been following this over the last couple of years. You know that Giannis doesn't want to stay in Milwaukee and wants to go somewhere where he can win, and that place is definitely not Milwaukee. You know that he wants out. He just doesn't want to be labeled as the bad guy. So we're all wise to this. And then Giannis has the unmitigated gall to come out on social media today, tweeting out Leo and Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not leaving. And the cringiest, was this caption on that same tweet, Ray? He says, yes. Where I wrote it down. Oh, legends don't chase, they attract. My God. It's going to make me throw up. I believe that Kendall Jenner said something similar when talking about her dating life. And Giannis is, and to insult all of our collective intelligences by acting like you never wanted to leave in the first place. And now, we're going to attract people to Milwaukee. No, you're not. Who wants to join up with that sideshow? And who are they going to get? Free agency basically in the NBA is dead. It's gone now because everyone's got the Supermax and all this kind of stuff. And with the luxury tax rules, free agency doesn't really exist anymore in the NBA. It's all trades, and who's going to give up a worthwhile star to put with Giannis? And even then, I don't know that Milwaukee is good enough to win a title. But sure, let's all poke fun at Shams Charania, and I am not a huge Shams fan, but this is low-hanging fruit for Doc Rivers and everyone in Milwaukee. Take a listen to what Doc Rivers said earlier today.
Oh, no, I was just talking about, he's going to coach the celebrity game, right? You guys see that? He did inform me that he's going to put Shams on the trading block today, and he's just going to listen to offers. So I'm just going to go make that announcement right now.
This is going to look so bad this summer when Giannis gets traded. Because I think that a suitor will emerge. And I'm looking at the Western Conference. You have OKC, Denver, San Antonio, Houston, and Minnesota, who all believe that they are capable of winning a title this year. The team that maybe flames out of that group, the team that has an early exit, either their owner or their fan base, or maybe their own star, is going to get really loud in demanding that they go out and make a significant move to go get Giannis. So Milwaukee's the team that Milwaukee ultimately trades Giannis to, they're going to emerge. Right now, Houston, Denver, OKC, San Antonio, all Minnesota. Well, Minnesota was already after him. But those teams all say we can still win a title. We don't necessarily need Giannis to win. So we're not going to give up everything that it would take to get him. But one of those teams is going to have their season ended much sooner than their fan base and owner wanted it to. And that is the team that is going to move heaven and earth to trade for Giannis. And the Wolf of Wall Street tweets and Doc Rivers cracking jokes at Shams Charania's expense is going to look terrible, because we all know that Giannis Antetokounmpo does not want to be in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform anymore. Back after this. Welcome in hour 2 on this Thursday. Great to have you. Shouts to those of you watching the show on any one of the popular social media platforms, Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, at XTRA Sports 1300 or at 740 KVOR. You can watch the show on a daily basis on those platforms. While you're there, like, subscribe, follow, and more importantly, drop a comment and join the conversation. That's not the only way that you can join the conversation. Of course, you could call or text into the show at 719-247-1313. Continuing with the NBA trade deadline, the Denver Nuggets do make a move. They were on a list this morning of, I think, 4 or 5 teams that had not made a move. They made a move. And it's trading Hunter Tyson to the Brooklyn Nets for a second-round pick swap. And this is all to allow the Nuggets to convert Spencer Jones from a two-way contract to a full-blown NBA contract, which, I mean, good for him. What a story he has been. And he's been a productive member of this team. And the Nuggets are happy to have him. This is the way you keep him. It's by converting his contract. Nuggets will be able to do that. And they will also be able to go out and get a player, one, from the buyout market, if they so choose. And all reports are that the Nuggets are going to be looking. Now, there is a list of players that you once thought were very good or going to be very good and are not so much now. So, temper your expectations for what the Denver Nuggets can bring in. But there's some names there. I'm partial to Lonzo Ball. Speaking of guys that I swore were going to be very good, I think if you're telling me you could turn Jalen Pickett in a way into Lonzo Ball, I would do it. Right? He's a better version of Jalen Pickett, gives the Nuggets a little bit more at that position. Now, reports are that the Nuggets are not going to be looking for a specific position. They just, a player that they think can help them, a player with an immaculate health history might be at the top of their wish list, which Lonzo Ball would not fit that, considering he went through the same surgery and comeback path as Gabriel Landeskog did. But they're going to this is like when you draft late in a round, you're just going best player available. That's what the Denver Nuggets are going to be looking for. Best player available. So we'll see what that brings for the Denver Nuggets, and then we can discuss at that time, whether it's a good addition or not. In the meantime, though, given that the Hunter Tyson trade is certainly not going to, blow anyone away here, I think it's important on a day that the trade deadline passes. And look, as a fan, you get caught up in the excitement. Will my team be making a move? And obviously with the Denver Nuggets, there were questions about, man, how are you going to keep Peyton Watson? And to a lesser extent, the Spencer Jones aspect of this. So there were some real questions about where the Nuggets go. So could they make a move at the deadline to try and set themselves up for the future? I did not think they were going to do anything of the sort. I told you on the show yesterday that the Nuggets were going to do virtually nothing. And as it pertains to Peyton Watson, I think in many ways, Peyton Watson has been found money. Now, I'm not saying that the Nuggets have to move Peyton or keep Peyton Watson at the expense of losing Aaron Gordon here. But here's where you let that found money ride. Peyton Watson is much more than he has been in the past. So now the Nuggets are that much deeper when, with the obvious caveat, when healthy, they're an even deeper and better team than they were projected to be coming into the year. So this is where you let it ride with Peyton Watson. You keep them on your roster. They have restricted free agency working in their favor. In fact, the Nets today just cut Cam Thomas, who is one of these restricted free agents. So if the Nuggets are willing to pay Peyton Watson, which I don't think that they are, but if they were willing, they could probably keep him. They really could. Because restricted free agency gives the team that has the player the power here. Just ask Jonathan Kuminga. But you let it go. You keep this group. You hope they get healthy, and you say, with all the moves we made, plus Peyton Watson's emergence, plus Jamal Murray being an all-star and a potential all-NBA player this year, don't upset the apple cart when you don't have to. During the summer, there are going to be some tough decisions facing this front office. But there's no reason to, in anticipation of that, make any drastic moves. So you make the Hunter Tyson move and you get under the luxury tax so Stan is happy and the Nuggets can move on and even maybe add a player via the buyout market. But I do understand if, maybe you're hoping that the Nuggets would land Giannis or do something significant. But in cases like that, you just have to kind of take a step back and say, are the Denver Nuggets, by not making a move, in a worse spot than they were 24 hours ago? Now, they're in a worse spot health-wise, but again, you're not going to be able to make a significant trade with probably 2, maybe 3 of the guys that you would consider trading injured or just coming back from injury. Christian Brown, or I guess 3 of the 4. Again, Cam Johnson, I apologize. Just, you got to play more games, dude. You just got to. And then I'll make sure I remember you. But the Nuggets aren't going to be able to facilitate a big-time trade when half of their roster is on the injured list. So now, are they in a worse spot personnel-wise? Like, they didn't get better at the trade deadline. You can absolutely say that. They didn't get better. Are they worse? Look at the rest of the league. OKC makes a move for Jared McCann. Great move. And I love when smart organizations make smart moves. They may not be headline grabbing, but they're just really smart moves. Boston did this with adding Vucevic. Like, they're not going to be talked about more than the James Harden trade or the Anthony Davis trade, but they're just really smart. But are you going to tell me that Jared McCann is going to put OKC over the top? He's going to make the difference in a 7-game series? Of course not. So however you feel about OKC in relationship to Denver at this point, you still feel that way. Okay? The McCain move is more to stockpile assets, which Sam Presti does. Stockpile assets. So when they start to lose some of these guys because they can't pay them all, now you have somebody that can reset your timeline a little bit. And that's what the move with Philadelphia allows them to do. San Antonio did nothing. They were one of the teams that ended up not making a single move. A team already that I doubt would beat the Denver Nuggets healthy in a 7-game series did not make their team better. Houston is status quo, and I don't know if you saw this. They got beat by 20 at home by the Boston Celtics, who still do not have Jason Tatum. Minnesota does make a good move, but I don't know how it's going over in Minnesota, considering that they seem to be all in on Giannis, but they get a guard from Chicago as basically an upgrade from Mike Conley. Not a huge upgrade, but he's younger. And so I think with Minnesota, maybe a tick better, but again, not a move that would completely change my mind on how a 7-game series between those two teams would go. So that's the other half of these trade deadlines is, okay, maybe you're disappointed that your team didn't get better, or you could say that your team's not better. The Nuggets are not better today than they were 24 hours ago. In fact, they lost a player in Hunter Tyson, if we're being honest about it. Talk amongst yourselves on what void that will leave on the Denver Nuggets roster. But you look around, and I don't think any of the teams that are competing with the Nuggets for a title this year have gotten better in a way that would change your mind on how the Nuggets would fare against them. So if you felt like, so the only thing here would be if you thought that after watching Denver play OKC the other night, you're like, the Nuggets have to upgrade their roster. To me, that's the only thing, because San Antonio's not better. They weren't better than the Nuggets, 48 hours ago, a week ago. They're not better than them now. Houston, I don't think is either. And I've said we're about done with the whole Minnesota thing, with that being an issue for the Denver Nuggets, given the way that the games between these two teams have gone. But I think you still, even if you feel like, okay, Denver's not better than OKC, well, consider who they didn't have. And it's a fine line, and you can abuse this. I think the Rockies have been famous for abusing this. Like, just wait till we're healthy and blaming injuries. And I know that's a laughable thing when it comes to the Rockies, but there are other examples of teams that go, just wait for at Philadelphia. How about the 76ers? They're probably a better example, right? Philadelphia, just wait. Just wait till we get healthy. Okay, well, you're never going to be healthy, so stop. So you can keep using it and abusing it, but considering that the Nuggets are just dealing with all these injuries this season and the number of injuries they have sustained, I think it is okay for the Denver Nuggets to say, look, our additions, quote unquote, to our team are coming later when we get Aaron Gordon back, when Christian Brown is back to 100%. Now when we get back Peyton Watson. So I don't think, even though the Denver Nuggets really can't do anything. They really can't. But the fact that they ended up not making any moves, I don't think you look at the rest of the West or the rest of the NBA for that matter and go, man, the Nuggets really squandered an opportunity here. I think they're in the same spot. I wouldn't take any Houston, San Antonio, or Minnesota over them based on what they did or did not do. In OKC, I still think that it's the additions of Hardaway and Valanciunas that might make the difference. Take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Again, the Nuggets moving Hunter Tyson out in a straight salary dump so they can convert Spencer Jones to a full-blown NBA contract, and they will have a chance to go out into the buyout market and maybe get somebody to supplement their roster. Not a difference maker, not a game changer, but given what has happened with the Denver Nuggets, they could use another body. 719-247-1313. Corey Roldan of KKTV 11 is my guest after this. Too soon, Peyton Watson bringing us back into the show. He leaves last night's game with a hamstring injury, and Spencer Jones got a concussion as the injuries continue to mount for the Denver Nuggets. Joining me now to discuss is Corey Roldan from KKTV 11. Corey, how are you, buddy?
First of all, doing pretty good. The weather just keeps flipping back and forth between hot and cold here in February, but we're rolling. Pretty fun basketball game last night. I thought Jokic for a second there was going to hit the game winner. But lost 3 in a row, and then you lose a guy that looked like a rising star in Peyton Watson.
At what point will Corey Roldan be genuinely concerned that we're not going to see a fully healthy Nuggets team in the playoffs?
Oh, man. It's getting pretty close. Let's say mid-March, okay? If Peyton Watson and Aaron Gordon aren't back and they don't get like 3 weeks to play basketball together and figure out what's the best lineups you're going to close with, who's the best players you're going to put on the floor depending on matchups, and really, because this season started so well. This team was so good. And then Aaron Gordon is the heart and soul of that team. He brings the toughness. They've been getting out rebound and kind of bullied, and I kind of attribute that to AG not being back. And I know Jokic isn't fully healthy right now. We're seeing like 75% Jokic, but mid-March.
You brought up how good they looked before the injury bug. I mean, they've been dealing with it all season, but before it really hit them, are you watching these games, especially this week, OKC, Detroit, New York last night, and saying that if the Nuggets are healthy, they would be able to beat any of those 3 teams in a 7-game series? I guess I'm especially asking about OKC on Sunday.
I think they could beat any team in the NBA when they're fully healthy. When they have Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson's a guy I didn't mention. He really is the most unfortunate one out of all this because he needs the most time on the court to kind of get his confidence going and figure out his role, which is going to be a good defensive player and then hit open shots with limited shots, that being. So when they're healthy, I think they could beat anybody. I don't think there's a question by that. It's just about, will they have enough time and to figure it out if they have enough time, like the rotations and being accustomed to playing with one another.
Corey Roldan, my guest, the inclusion of Jamal Murray with the All-Star team.
Finally.
But I will say this, though, like, I don't know that I have stumped for him to make the All-Star game before this year. Like, I think him getting in is because he has raised his game to the appropriate level to deserve to be
100%.
included.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, he's best season in points, best season in assists, best season in rebounding, and it is the best shooting percentage from 3-point range in his entire career. This is his best season by far, and he's been healthy. Dude, I had so much concerns with the contract they gave him 2 years ago after the Olympics, where he was terrible on Team Canada, and then he struggled against the Wolves. Right now, dude, he's a big reason why this team stayed he is the reason this team stayed afloat, along with Peyton Watson when Jokic was down. He's averaging 26, basically 8 on 43% shooting from 3.
Yeah.
It's incredible. That's an all-star.
Right. And I'm not saying that he was completely out of the conversation before, but he needed to raise his game to this level to be fully deserving of being an all-star. The great irony is one of the things that Jamal Murray has excelled at and is about the best the Nuggets have in this regard. his free throw percentage is down. I found that to be kind of ironic that every
It's 88%. I'm
yeah.
still gonna
Well, he's
88.
like, right. Yeah, I'll take it to be sure. So Jamal Murray's in the All-Star game. Nikola Jokic is in the All-Star game. It's World versus USA. About a week from now, is Corey Roldan going to be locked into the NBA All-Star game?
I'm going to be watching the Olympic hockey,
Okay.
and I just the NBA
Do we have
All-Star.
a conflict? Do we have a conflict during that time? Because that would be tough.
Well, it's just like the NBA All-Star game's been so bad, and it's just hard for me to sit there and think that these guys are still going to care because it's the world versus America, right? They don't want to get hurt. They would have to do something like the NHL did last year with the Four Nations.
But isn't this a kind of that? I mean, you can't. So you're saying like put Bogdanovich with Jokic and let there be Team Serbia, Team Canada, Team USA. Like
let's go Team Baltics, right?
Okay.
With Luka, Zubac, with we can include Greece in that conversation, and then you can do Team
Canada.
Team Canada. You can do Team Western Europe with France and Spain and England, right? And then you can do Team Africa or South America. You know what I'm saying? It's just to make it a little bit more impactful. I just don't know if that's going to make the game good again. All of a sudden, we're going to see guys trying.
Well, but the U.S. has to raise their game, right?
They're going to get the world team should destroy them.
Right, but like America, the Team USA has USA. I think you make a great point about the effectiveness of the Four Nations is that Finnish players were wearing their flag on their jersey. So I think you're spot on with the breaking up the world team and making it more localized and more tapping into that national pride rather than just saying, hey, you're not American, you're on this team. But with the U.S., they do have that. Their Team USA, these two teams, they've got to care, right? They've got to care at the very least.
I want to see if they have a guard on their roster. Give me 2 seconds.
Steph?
Look, they don't have a guard. I mean, not a guard. I mean a center. They do not have a center on the roster. Kevin Durant, LeBron, Kawhi. Who's going to play center on Team USA?
That's a good point. Like maybe they still
and then they're guarding, and then on the other end, you got Giannis and Jokic, and oh man.
I tweeted out that just because the two players and to be fair, Nikola Jokic is involved in all of that nonsense as much as anybody is. He goofs around in that game. But Murray says he's going to be locked in, and Wemby says he's going to be locked in. I tweeted out the other day that 2-man game between those two might beat USA alone, let alone, Jokic, Luka.
You got Wemby, Giannis, and Jokic. And in Team USA, who is there going to be their starter for the center? Is KD going to guard Wemby?
I mean, good luck.
I mean, Kawhi on Jokic, LeBron on Giannis.
Oh, Chet. What about Chet? Is Chet? Wait, Chet
is not. Oh, he is. Okay, there you go. That's your one.
There you go. There you go.
And Wemby can't stand Chet.
Team USA, right? Right.
Dude, give me the world right now.
Yeah. Plus the point or laying the points coming up on that. So you're the event that you're more locked into and will be is the Olympics, the hockey aspect of it. Sure. What else are you going to be, because this is winter and it doesn't get
I
as
know,
much
but like
love
all the
as-
other sports that
Yeah.
I never watch, like it's the cross country skiing and snowboarding and skating and curling.
Mhm.
Just locked into it. It's like ESPN 8 the Ocho, but Olympic style. Bobsledding. I love bobsledding. I'll watch some bobsledding. It's also the women's hockey I'm very excited about.
Yeah, they won today, going away 5-1.
Yes. So I'm just overall, just give me Team Canada versus Team USA finals.
There you go.
Just
And
give
everything.
me it. No, I'm talking about hockey, man. Because
Oh,
that
in
Four
hockey, yeah.
Nations game
Yeah.
last year was incredible. Could you imagine playing for a gold medal? Those two teams, Brock Nelson against Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, and Devon Taves.
Yeah. And the Kachuk brothers mixing up with Kale and Nate. I can't wait. We need it. Or else a whole campaign centering around John Hamm is going to go for naught if we don't get Team USA versus Team Canada. But I would be shocked if we did not. How about the Corey Roldan of KKTV 11? How about the big sporting event this weekend? What is the storyline? What is the thing in Patriots Seahawks that is drawing you to any level to that game?
Sam Darnold, the story of Sam Darnold, a guy that I believe in the NFL that we cast away young quarterbacks way too soon. We saw it with Baker Mayfield. We saw Daniel Jones have great success this year. We saw Geno Smith. I believe that young quarterbacks need game reps. They need a coaching staff that's going to put them in the correct situations. And that is totally Sam Darnold. He went from bad situation with the Jets, a bad situation with the Panthers, to, hey, you know what, let's learn how to be a quarterback in the NFL at the 49ers, to Kevin O'Connell. How bad does Vikings fans feel right now, by the way? They went, 14-3
pretty bad because they
last
fired
year?
their GM.
Yes. And then you win 14 games with the Vikings, and then you go to another team and win 14 games. That says a lot about Sam right there. And everybody made fun of the guy for seeing ghosts and whatnot. I love people who can overcome failure, right? Because failure is a part of life, and overcoming adversity is incredible. It's a Mamba mentality, right? And so that respect for Sam. I also think Mike Vrabel is a great game manager. What he did to Sean Payton, because he does not call plays, like he waited. People don't see this on the TV sometimes, but Payton would call on a play. They would change personnel, and then he would get the biggest guys and switch out his defensive line. So Jared Stidham didn't have time to recognize the blitzes in the plays during the game. And he was just focused on that aspect. Just the minuscule little things Vrabel does to affect games is really important, I think. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, we're both kind of talked about it. Broncos should have been there, but it is what it is.
Well, Cortland Sutton says that the Broncos should have been there as well.
So does Pat Surtain.
Right. Before I let you go, I want you, and maybe you mentioned this on your show at some point, but I haven't talked to you about this. Should Davis Webb call plays next year for the Denver Broncos?
Should and will. That's
should and will.
All right. Will he? No.
Oh, okay.
Sean Payton will not give up those reins. Maybe situationally. What I wish Sean would do is what Lane Kiffin does in college football, where Lane will call the big plays. He will call the momentum changing plays, like a fourth down. He will call like a key third down, a red zone play. But just the in and out first, second down play, you let your OC call it just so you can manage the game. I wish Sean would do that. But do I think he will? No. Sean has never given up his play calling abilities except when he got suspended in Bounty Gate in 2012 and also for a few games when he broke his leg in 2011.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that till he brought it up on his
Pete
postseason
Carmichael.
press conference. Yeah.
How is Pete Carmichael getting more jobs in the NFL, by the way? It just amazes me. He's a new offensive coordinator for the Bills. I saw him with the Saints be an offense coordinator without Sean Payton. Not good. Not good. Not good.
Yeah, that Buffalo situation, it's all Sean Payton disciples over there
Joe
in Buffalo.
Brady.
Yeah, Joe
Payton's
Brady.
got a lot of people got to realize Payton's got a few coaches in the league now. It's not just Dan Campbell, it's Aaron Glenn, it's Joe Brady now. He should get a couple more in the next couple of years with Davis Webb, with Coach Vance Joseph. So Dennis Allen just got fired. He's another Peyton disciple in his coaching tree.
Well, we'll see what happens with Davis Webb. That's certainly one of the big storylines going into the offseason for the Denver Broncos, in addition to what moves. Yeah.
Do you think Davis Webb will call plays next year?
I do.
You do?
I do.
I don't think Peyton's ego will allow it.
And I keep and I get it, but there's he's still going to get credit. Like that, as the head coach, we give credit to the head coach. I feel like there are ways to feed his ego with ultimately the success of the Denver Broncos. Like if the Broncos win, then his ego will be completely full, but people will love all over the guy. So I feel like he has to understand that this is probably for the best to make the Broncos better. And if he does that, then he's going to get his flowers just as much as he would if he were calling the plays.
So this is what I think. So Sean McVay still calls the plays for the Rams, right? Mike LaFleur got the head coaching job at the Cardinals as their OC. There's been several Rams assistants. I think Peyton thought that he was going to lose Webb if he didn't make him his offensive coordinator. And he told him, although he's not going to call plays, that he's more likely to get a head coaching job as an offensive coordinator than a quarterback's coach, even though he doesn't call plays.
But you and I agree that Davis Webb should in the best interest in the Denver Broncos. Oh, Sean. Well, you know what? They wouldn't even be in this situation without Sean Payton. So that's the kind of catch-22 we got going on.
You would be 8-9 right now without Sean Payton. Let's make that totally clear. You would be stuck in this 12-year non-playoff drought without Sean. So don't start complaining.
But can always be better. It can always be better. Corey Roldan, KKTV 11. Check him out. 5:30 and 10 on a nightly basis. Thanks for jumping aboard, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you.
Yep, you too. That is Corey Roldan of KKTV 11. He and I will kind of continue conversing because I'll be joining him on KKTV as well. We'll take a break. 719-247. 1313 is the number if you want to react to anything Corey and I were discussing. More Drive Time Sports next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. The world of college athletics has certainly changed quite a bit, and it's even more pronounced now, the difference between the Air Force Academy and what they do in all of their sports versus what basically everyone else does. Now, Army, Navy are certainly in this same boat with the difficulties of recruiting already. That was the case, and now it's even more so because NIL and all that kind of stuff. So if you want traditional college sports stories, right? If you don't think that the direction college sports is moving in is for the better, and it's not the same sport or sports as you became a fan of, the truest form of college athletics is really going on at the service academies. I mean, it is. Now, not to say that if Air Force tomorrow could utilize the transfer portal, I don't even know how that would all work with, the academy side of the Air Force Academy, but I'm sure that there are coaches at the Air Force Academy that would love to be able to bring in somebody from the transfer portal. So look, it's not that, Air Force, if they had the opportunity, wouldn't utilize it, but the circumstances are what they are. And even more so now than ever before, the traditional college experience when it comes to sports is up the road. And look, I think the way I look at it is they're kind of two different worlds here, and I like aspects of both. I like both. I do think that the direction that college sports is moving is ultimately going to make it better in terms of my interest level. Now, right now it's a mess, and I don't know if they're going to get some of these things figured out, but I'm in favor of the ideas behind a lot of what you're seeing in college athletics right now. But I also still very much enjoy when, and I wanted my big responsibilities on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis is calling Air Force basketball games. So I think there are kind of two worlds, and maybe that's ultimately not great from a competitive standpoint for an Air Force Academy, but you still get some great stories from the academy and from the other service academies as well, because they are doing it the traditional way, the way that you grew up understanding college sports to be before you understood, what was going on behind the scenes at these major programs and everything. And I bring all that up to say there was a moment like that last night. So Air Force women's basketball beats Utah State 73-50. Okay. Team that's going to the Pac-12, going the cash grab, going to the Pac-12. Air Force, a team that utilizes the transfer portal. They got international players. Air Force beats them by 23 points. Great win for Stacey McIntyre's team. But the story I'm referring to is that of Emily Adams. So Emily Adams is the type of athlete that is becoming rarer and rarer in college athletics, because she is about to finish a 4-year career playing Division I college athletics at the same school. And that just doesn't happen that much anymore. And I look at these rosters for these teams that Air Force plays, like none of these players have stayed at one school. They're all transfers. So Emily Adams has stayed in this Air Force program for 4 years. And this year, she is having a like a basketball career renaissance in a way. Because the level that she has taken her game to in the last few weeks is the type of thing that used to be all over college athletics and now not so much anymore. She is a player that has been developed and coached up and on her own worked to try and get better and better and better in this on the same school for 4 years. And now the fruits of that labor are on display because last night Emily Adams capped off a really a month-long stretch where every single game she was setting a career record for her points in a game. Last night, she went off for 25 points and 12 rebounds, notching her first career double-double as well. Here's Emily on what allowed her to have such a monster game last night for Air Force.
I think a lot of stuff, but mainly the passing from my teammates for sure. Like I can, as long as I can finish the passes, that's what matters. And they're passing it into me. So that's how it works.
But they're passing it to her because they trust her. Right? They trust that Emily Adams, if we put the ball in her hands, she's going to score. And that wasn't necessarily the case when she first came into the academy. But that's what makes it such a great story and such a great traditional college athletics story. A player that has grinded for 4 years and has upped her game and has been coached up is now playing at a level she's never played at before. And it's coming at the exact right time for Air Force because they're winners of their last two. And you look at their schedule and they may be able to go on a little bit of a run here. But I had a conversation last night with Emily's mother and her sister and just the pride that they have in her and how excited they are for her playing at this level. It's like, that's what college sports is all about. Like, and I'm not anti what's going on with big college athletics. I'm not. I certainly have problems with the way they're going about a lot of it. But it is still really cool to get stories like Emily Adams and a player that has risen through the same program and is now becoming a huge contributor to the success of this Air Force team this year. And talking to her last night and over the last few games, like she's as excited as her family is because she's seeing the fruits of her labor. So, I mean, this is not a, PSA for Air Force Athletics. AFtickets.com be out there on Saturday, although it'd be great if you were to support these ladies against Grand Canyon. But it's why I enjoy doing what I do. Because these players come in as freshmen and they stay till they're seniors. And to watch the career arc, the development that goes on, the improvement of leaps and bounds from these players, it's remarkable to see. And there's stories like that throughout this roster. I mean, Milani Perry is going to become the all-time leading scorer in the history of this program and has a viable case if Air Force starts to stack up wins like I think they might over the next few weeks, has a chance to be considered for player of the year in her conference. And that is somebody that has stuck to it. Cadets, they have an out, right? They can go sophomore year. After their sophomore year, that's the time. If they're going to go, they got to go. And Milani Perry stayed. And now she's one of the best players in the conference. but you also have the internal improvement, the roster development that is going on at a service academy. And I had this conversation with Frank Serratori the other night when I was sitting in for Jay Ritchie on the coaches show. And I asked him, like, is there a little bit more pride that you are taking right now coaching this team and winning hockey games because the opposing forces against you in college athletics are even greater than they've ever been? But yet you're still seeing Air Force winning games and seeing these players who have been in the program for 4 years developing. Chris Hedden is, in his conference, one of the best players. So those traditional college stories about a player coming in as a freshman and developing all the way to being a big-time player as a senior, it's still happening. Very cool stuff. Back after this. Hello there. Welcome in hour 3 on this Thursday. Great to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or on the app for either one of those radio stations. They are free to download and they are free to use, and they are sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. If you would like to be a part of the show you are currently listening to or watching, for that matter, on X, Facebook, or Instagram, feel free to do so. 719-247-1313. You could call or text in your thoughts. Producer Ray Dominguez is eagerly awaiting your call or text. And perhaps you have a thought or two on these, the 3 stories that are driving the show. All right, I have been accused on occasion of being grumpy McGrumperson, a little bit negative. So who am I to buck that trend? Here's the bad news of last night.
Just seeing so much of this year. I just feel bad for the guys in the locker room. Like it's deflating, when you keep seeing people go down around you when you're trying to build towards something.
That is Nuggets head coach David Adelman, as once again the Denver Nuggets not only lose a basketball game, first time all year they've lost 3 in a row as they fall in double overtime to the Knicks, but that's not really the story. The story is they lost 2 more players. Peyton Watson leaving the game in the fourth quarter with a hamstring injury. Still no word on his timeline for a return. And Spencer Jones, one of the better stories this season for the Denver Nuggets, right along with Peyton Watson, if we're being honest about it. He suffers a concussion and leaves the game in the first quarter. And the Denver Nuggets are not the most injured team in the league, believe it or not. But what has the times that have tried men's souls, and by men I mean David Adelman and the Denver Nuggets, is because it's in and out, in and out. It's a revolving door right now of injuries. It would be one thing if it was, and we've seen the Nuggets deal with this, right? Aaron Gordon goes down. Okay, we're without Aaron Gordon. Here's the systems we're putting in place. Who's taking his spot. And guess what? We need someone to do some of the things that Aaron Gordon does. Fine. Nuggets have enough talent to be able to do that. What's tripping them up against 3 of the best teams, or at least 3 of the teams with the best records in the NBA, is the fact that on a night-to-night basis, they don't know who's going to be in the lineup. They can't plan for this. Christian Brown went out, then he came back, then he went out again. Aaron Gordon's been that same way. Now Peyton Watson out, Nikola Jokic. That's been the issue. It's not just the number of injuries, because I actually think we've seen the Denver Nuggets, right? Remember the Magnificent 7? Remember, what did we, the 9 of Hearts earlier this season when the Nuggets were down to 9 players, one of them not being Nikola Jokic, and still won a basketball game over, I believe it was Minnesota, right? Philly. Thank you, Ray. Like, we've seen the Nuggets severely shorthanded still win basketball games. But it's every day the plan has to change. It's not one constant injury like Indiana can try to deal with Tyrese Halliburton, or the Celtics without Jason Tatum. Every day that goes by, it's like another player out. Throw out the game plan, got to put in the new game plan. Oh, wait, this guy's coming back, but he's not really back because he's on a minutes restriction, Nikola Jokic. That's what is so incredibly frustrating about all this. That the Nuggets just can't exist for a period of time even with guys missing, whether it's Jokic or Gordon or Cam Johnson. Like, I think what David Adelman wants, besides everybody back healthy, is just for the injuries to stop for like a week. Keep everybody for a week. Let me figure this out for a week before another player goes down. And they just don't have that. And the schedule has been unrelenting. Top team in the West, followed by the top team in the East, and on the second night of a back-to-back, and of course it goes into double overtime, playing the team with the second best record in the East. These are not the games where that constant reconfiguring of the roster is going to lead to success for the Denver Nuggets. Maybe if they had one day to prepare for Peyton Watson's eventual exit from the game, maybe they could have gotten the win last night. It is the worst stretch of maybe this season for the Nuggets to be shorthanded. And it's every day a new injury pops up. And that is what is so incredibly frustrating if you're a Nuggets fan, player, or coach alike. I don't know when relief is going to come. And I think you look at the long term and you say, just get them back before the postseason. Allow David Adelman like a week to be able to put together his rotations. And then away they go with the playoffs. And if that's the case, then the Nuggets still can accomplish everything they set out to accomplish this year. But as each day goes by and as another injury happens, it's not that any of these guys are out for the season and it's a guarantee they won't have them, but you just have to start wondering, is this team ever going to be fully healthy? Or are they always going to have a key rotational player that they have to compensate for being out? We're trending in that direction at a breakneck pace. So we await word on the health, the status of Peyton Watson moving forward, Spencer Jones as well. I am not as well versed in the NBA concussion protocol as I am the NFL, so we'll see what happens with Spencer Jones as well. But just like not even a week, like give David Adelman 3 days. I mean, he was able to game plan without the best player in the world for a month. Can he have a few days to at least get the plan together to go up against OKC or Detroit or New York? And it's a rhetorical question because the answer clearly is absolutely not. And how dare you ask that? Nuggets back in action Saturday night. Cross your fingers that everybody who plays in the game exits the game on their own terms and not by injury. But there are better things happening right now. And that is the subject of story number 2.
We needed to get in attack mode a little bit more.
Actually, I want to play the highlight because it was a win.
Pops it for Nichushkin, big foul. Looking for Manson, found him one-timer. Score! Josh Manson, an absolute bomb. And the Avs have taken a 3-2 lead.
Mark Mosier on the call for Altitude Television. The Avs had one game left before the Olympic break to make everyone feel a little bit better about them. And they did that last night with a 4-2 win over the San Jose Sharks. And that kind of a win should not be diminished. Like in the grand scheme of things, is one game going to make the difference between the Avs winning the Central or not? No. But even the Avalanche players admitted after the game that they didn't love what was going on, and they wanted to get some of it back, whatever it is, confidence, execution level. They wanted to get some of it back before they went off to the Olympic break. And I know Landeskog and McKinnon and Makar and the other totaling 8 Avs players who are now going to represent their country. Their minds are now on Italy, but that's not the entirety of the Avs roster. There are players like Josh Manson who's just going to go home and chill for a couple of weeks. You think he wants to be stewing about a loss before the break to cap off a really rough stretch of hockey? Absolutely not. Do you think you as a fan want to sit on that stretch being the memory you're left with before the Avs play again after the break? No. So last night was not an insignificant result. And now everyone can collectively take a breath, knowing that unlike the Denver Nuggets, there is a little bit more confidence that the Avs will be healthier after the break with Gabriel Landeskog and Marty Necas returning. So important for the Avs to get that win to make everyone feel a little bit better. However, in true Ryan Kaufman fashion, the Avs power play is now the worst in the NHL based on numbers. They have the worst power play percentage in the league because even in a 4-2 win, they did not score on 3 power play attempts. That is something that is kind of like the Nuggets injury thing. I don't know if the Avs are going to get that right at all this season. I think it's just something they're going to have to deal with. Because we're here at the Olympic break. Call it the midway point, whatever you want to call it. I just don't see how the Avs are going to turn their power play around when they come back from the Olympics. I think this is just them. And that was something that did end up costing them against Dallas. So it's not great. But I think that's, and I'm not saying that the Avs necessarily can't win a Stanley Cup with their power play being this bad. I'm just saying is a major liability for a team that would otherwise be head and shoulders above everyone else in the NHL. So if this brings them back down a little bit and they're on everyone's level, they still have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. But this is a huge cloud that is going to hang over this team for the rest of this year. It is not going to get demonstrably better between now and the end of the regular season. I wish I could report differently, but I say what I feel. Avs close out the first part of the season before the Olympic break with the 4-2 win. And meanwhile, their power play is now the worst. Let's go to, speaking of the worst, story number 3.
Oh, no, I was just talking about, he's going to coach the celebrity game, right? You guys see that? He did inform me that he's going to put Shams on the trading block today, and he's just going to listen to offers. So I'm just going to go make that announcement right now.
Doc Rivers, maybe not as good of a coach as you once thought he was, but always been a terrible comedian. That was the joke that he tried to make today as Giannis Antetokounmpo did not get traded by the Milwaukee Bucks before today's 1 p.m. trade deadline, and the most awkward, pathetic saga in recent NBA memory continues on. And the reason why it's awkward and it's kind of pathetic is because we all know that Giannis Antetokounmpo does not want to stay in Milwaukee. So the Bucks social media account pounding their chest and Doc Rivers cracking jokes is just going to make them look all the worse when Giannis is ultimately traded. But Giannis is on social media doing the Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm not leaving. Legends don't chase, they attract. Like, this is all quite pathetic because we all know what's going on. Giannis for 2 years has not wanted to stay in Milwaukee, but the only thing that rivals his desire to be in a new location where he can win another title is his desire, his need to be liked. And say what you will about some of the NBA superstars that have asked out of their locales, including just recently James Harden with the LA Clippers. I got to give them credit that they at least say what they mean. And they rip the Band-Aid off. This is the slowest death of a franchise I've ever seen. Because Giannis doesn't want to hurt feelings and it doesn't want the fans to turn on him. Sorry. Either you got to be Damian Lillard and not ask for a trade and not even broach the subject and suffer in mediocrity, or you got to be LeBron, AD, James Harden, Kevin Durant, and you got to be a bad guy and you got to get out. But I'm telling you, you're going to get a hero's welcome in the next city that you're going to land in, and that should be enough. Say what you will about these superstars. And look, I bash them for being hired guns and mercenaries and all this kind of stuff. But what Giannis is doing is not better. It's not. The Milwaukee Bucks have destroyed their roster trying to appease him. And it's been just the most painful thing to watch. And we know where it's going to end. There is a 0% chance that Giannis Antetokounmpo finishes his career as a member of the Milwaukee Bucks. And the sooner he realizes that and just says, I'm out, trade me, everyone will be better off. He wants to move. Stop trying to have your cake and eat it too, and stop trying to be the good guy in all of this. You're not. You want out. Just say it and allow the Milwaukee Bucks, put the Bucks' feet to the fire and make them pull off a trade now. Haven't they suffered enough with you putting some passive-aggressive pressure on them to blow up the roster for Damian Lillard and then blow up what's remaining from the roster in order to get Miles Turner? Giannis, by trying to be the good guy, still trying to be liked by everybody, is turning him into exactly what AD and LeBron and Kevin Durant and James Harden are. You have to make a choice. Do you want to chase rings, or do you want to stay loyal and be liked by everybody? Because you can't be liked by everybody if you want to chase rings. Giannis has got to make a decision. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Coming up next, a plea to please stop babying quarterbacks from an actual NFL quarterback. I'll tell you who after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. 719-247-1313 is the number. Obviously, Super Bowl week going on and Radio Row going on. So you get a lot of NFL people talking. And sometimes when you talk and you talk and you talk, you know, you end up saying something quite interesting, which I find with the whole Radio Row thing, not always the case. Right? There's a lot this week of Hawken products and stuff like that, but you get somebody talking enough and you have enough different people asking questions, maybe you might get actually something very noteworthy. And I have to give credit to Kevin Clark of ESPN on his This Is Football show, because he got Joe Flacco to say something very interesting. And what Joe Flacco said was that essentially the NFL has got to stop babying quarterbacks, which he is, by the way. He is a quarterback, and he's saying stop coddling us, stop babying us. Two examples, or what he's talking about, roughing the passer, right? He says two things that should not be roughing the passer: landing on a quarterback and hitting a quarterback in the top of the helmet. And he says that his generation or his group of quarterbacks, because it's kind of like him and I as millennials, like we're on the older end. So technically we're the millennial generation, but we are on the older end of that generation. So the guys that played with Flacco, even though he is still or was a current, has he retired yet or is he still going? But anyway, still a current quarterback. He's saying the group that he came in with him and he benefited because of the toughness that he has, because he was not babied by these rules. And Joe Flacco, I like Joe Flacco a lot, and I think that when he does speak, he usually has something to say. And I think this is great. And I think most people would agree with that sentiment. Right? I don't like some of the things that are called roughing the passer. In an ideal world, what would happen with roughing the passer is exactly what I said after the Brandon Cooks incident with the catch, not a catch. I said, I wish that it was just, you know what a catch is when you see it. You know, and I know what roughing the passer looks like. Because we yell at our TVs when a roughing the passer call is made and we don't think it should be. We know what it looks like. Okay? Hitting somebody at the top of his helmet or landing on somebody because you are finishing your tackle is not roughing the passer. Or it's not what it should be, to Joe Flacco's point. But it's the same with the catch rule. Like, you know what a catch looks like. That should be the rule. A referee should look and say, that guy, complete this sentence, that guy roughed that quarterback. It's like, and I know targeting is a controversial call, but like, you kind of know what targeting looks like. You're like, targeting. Or at least what targeting's supposed to be. Like, so many of these calls, you know what it looks like. Targeting's probably the NFL version of roughing the passer, so I probably shouldn't make that comparison. The point is, you watch enough football that you know the intent of the roughing the passer rule, what it's trying to protect against. I wish that were the rule. Rule 8, section A, subsection Q. roughing the passer. You know what it is. Call it. But it can't be that way. It can't be that way. You know why? Because you don't trust the referees to make those calls. I know the NFL doesn't. Because if it were just a nebulous like handshake agreement and an understanding that referees have full discretion on what is roughing the passer and what isn't, and the minute that they would call or not call roughing the passer against your team, you would flip out and say that is an obvious roughing the passer, an obvious not roughing the passer, and the referee has it in for my team, and the NFL is rigged. This is part of the reason why there are so many lines in the NFL rulebook to remove objectivity or subjectivity, excuse me. They want everything to be objective. They want everything to be black and white. They want, the ability to, when you question them, say, look, like Jaquan McMillan, right? Look, he has to survive the ground. It's written. It might be the stupidest word that has ever been written in the English language, but it's in the rule book. And Brandon Cooks did not survive the ground. Therefore, it's not a catch. So if you took Joe Flacco's premise and he said, landing on a guy is not a roughing the passer. And I think what Joe Flacco means to be landing on a guy shouldn't be. But what is an unacceptable way? Right? Like if he lands on him and breaks his arm, you're gonna be yelling for a flag to be thrown. I don't know that you can. I just feel like the NFL wants everything to be objective and not subjective. They want a line, a paragraph, a rule for everything so they can point to it when the angry mobs come for them. They can be like, see, it says this. You can't do this. It's black and white. Can you just say, you land on a guy, it's okay? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But I feel like the NFL, especially when it comes to quarterbacks, which is the other part of this, the position we're talking about here. But I think the NFL would not be comfortable with, may not be able to just remove that. Because it's landing on him. Well, his arm landed on him. That's okay. But wait, his whole body landed on him. Well, is it the top of the helmet's okay, but the face mask isn't? Like in some ways, it's going to lead to more verbiage, more lines in the rule book. Because you have to say, because I don't think anyone wants their quarterback to be literally punched in the head. I don't think Joe Flacco thinks it's okay that defensive players punch quarterbacks in the head. But how are you going to decipher the difference between, a little pat or accidentally or striking him? So when it comes to quarterbacks, the NFL has just went zero tolerance. Don't touch them. Don't look at them. Don't breathe on them. Let them do their thing. I wish it were as simple as Joe Flacco. That's my point. I wish it was as simple as Joe Flacco is trying to make it. But I don't think it is. And the ultimate would just be, let's trust the people who are paid to officiate this game know what roughing the passer looks like. But I don't think fans or the NFL itself has enough trust in the referees to do that. And that's not because the referees are bad. It's because the first place that we go as fans when things aren't going our way is to point at the officials for being biased. But the other aspect of this too is, and why I think most people like what Joe Flacco has to say and say that they want that to be the rule of law. But the NFL knows what matters in this league, and that's quarterbacks. And that's, well, let me back up. That's star players, and there are no bigger stars in the NFL than quarterbacks. The minute Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, or Lamar Jackson, or Josh Allen, they lose money. And you lose interest. And that's not good. So protecting these quarterbacks, babying them, if you will, is the NFL knowing what moves the needle, what matters most, what you tune in for, what you talk about more than anything else, the quarterback position. And if your team's quarterback, let's take Bo Nix, for example, if something were to happen to him, oh, wait, it did. Look at how it impacted the very next game, the biggest game of the year. Now, again, Bo Nix wasn't because he wasn't being protected by the officials, but just think of that scenario with other teams. See how not having Bo Nix impacted the Denver Broncos the next week. Do you want that to happen to your team? I don't think most people do. I think this is a situation where we think that we want what Joe Flacco says to happen, that we want it to be the rule, but the NFL has done their homework, and when your favorite quarterback goes down, you don't like it. And because the NFL wants everything to be as black and white as possible and to have as many rules as possible, they create a zero tolerance policy when it comes to touching quarterbacks. I wish it wasn't the case. But even part of me says, I watched my team lose its quarterback, and I was like, Peter Griffin in the theater stood up, done. Maybe I'm less than you as a fan. I can accept that. I think what Joe Flacco is saying, a lot of people feel like they believe. But I think there are reasons why the NFL does what it does. Not that they are infallible, but in this particular case, I think they've weighed their options. 719-24-7, 1313. One more break. Come back and wrap up the show after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Quiet night on the sports slate tonight. Nuggets off, Avalanche into the Olympic break. From the Olympics today, the USA women's hockey team got a win over Czechia, 5-1. Czechia. Apologies to Marty Natchez. I'll have it right, but it's his country that the U.S. women beat today 5-1. That's certainly one of the. We get into some of this tomorrow as well with the opening ceremonies in the Olympics beginning in earnest. I think there are a few prelims, hockey, women's hockey, that is. Men's hockey starts later, all the NHL players getting over to Italy in the next couple of days. Curling is another one that is already underway, very popular winter sport. I think you could watch some of the replays of those, and then it gets going in earnest, and we'll talk about viewing guide and all that kind of stuff. We talked about Lindsey Vonn being, to me, the biggest story, USA hockey being right there. And then upwards of 30 athletes from Colorado competing. So we'll get into some of that stuff tomorrow. Super Bowl as well. That is going on. Predictions and all that good stuff coming out of it. I was having a conversation with my producer, Ray, earlier. He was asking me what I was doing for the Super Bowl, because as you are well aware, and then if you're not aware, please let me know, because then I will remind you, because I am kind of insufferable when it comes to these things. I have had many of the recent Super Bowls involving my favorite team. So my normal recent Super Bowl viewing habits have been a little bit different. So now that I don't have, and with the Broncos, there is a level of disappointment, because it would be, dominating the show this week, and it'd be a huge story, and it'd be great to, be watching a Super Bowl with the Broncos in it and be talking about it the next day. I am in the content business. So without the Broncos in there and without the Chiefs in there, it is going to be a little bit different in the Kaufman household. But I think it might actually be in some ways better, because I have made the mistake, especially during the 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl, of inviting many guests. And look, it's not anything against them, but when you're having a Super Bowl party, it runs directly counter to what you are trying to accomplish as a fan on that day, which is just sit and watch the game. So I have done this completely backwards, because now, not inviting anybody over, it's just me and the boys, and I'm like, have I not done this for the games that I really care about the outcome? So I'm still, most things in my adult life, I'm still learning as I go. But yeah, I'm not. Now, there's going to be a spread. There will be a spread, plenty of eats. And the fact that I'll actually get my boys to sit with me and watch football for a decent amount of time, that's going to be good. But yeah, quiet. I think that's what it was with the Chiefs. I just wanted everybody, hey, everyone, come and look how good my football team is. Enjoy me enjoying watching my team compete in the Super Bowl. Maybe that's what it was. That's a little narcissistic, isn't it? I wouldn't put it past me. But yeah, just like now that we're here, close to the game, like I'm into it. Talk a lot about the Super Bowl tomorrow. I think there are some interesting storylines. I just wasn't with the Broncos and the Chiefs not being. I'm not going to spend a whole week hyping up the game. We got 21 other hours in the day. Let all these Westwood One shows that are on Radio Row hype up the game while peddling whatever these athletes want to push in order to get the interview. And look, there's a place for it, and we always expect it this time of year. I'm just saying there's plenty of hype on this radio station or on the Extra Sports 1300 for the Super Bowl. I'll like Friday before the Super Bowl, we'll get into it. But I am looking forward to spending Sunday watching this game between Seattle and New England. But as I was talking to Ray, it made me realize that I've been doing this backwards this whole time, where it should be this Sunday, everybody come over. Right? Because if I'm distracted, it's not as big of a deal. Like, obviously, on Monday's show, I will be talking about it, so I got to know what happens. I got to watch the whole thing. But I've watched Nuggets and Avs games and Broncos games recorded later. But in the moment, it's okay that I'm a little bit distracted. When the Chiefs are playing, why am I allowing myself to be distracted by hosting a party? Again, not on my guests. They're wonderful. It's on me. Maybe we'll talk about plans for the Super Bowl. Any tips, any go-to menu items? Maybe we'll get into that a little bit tomorrow. But I am interested in the Super Bowl. And now that the Olympics are here too, I know I'm more of a Summer Olympics guy too. Aren't we all? But I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the Olympics. I'm kind of like Corey Roldan, who joined me in the second hour of the show today. Like, these sports that I don't normally watch, like, I like watching them. It's weird. You would think I would have no interest in these sports, but I actually like, hey, I never watched this sport. Let me sit down and watch bobsled and curling. So a little Olympics, a little Super Bowl. I don't think anyone from the Denver Nuggets will get hurt between now and then. We may know the prognosis for Peyton Watson. Still haven't gotten anything like that. So that'll be tomorrow's show. NBA trade deadline is over. The buyout market coming up. We'll get into that as well. Teams buying out these players that they just got to match salaries, and see if any of those guys would interest you when it comes to the Denver Nuggets. But the trade deadline, the most impactful additions in the NBA have been made. And the most significant move, I think, is James Harden going to Cleveland. And I know you still have major questions about whether James Harden is going to perform in the playoffs. I didn't think Cleveland was a title contender to begin with this season, and I certainly don't think with the acquisition of Harden that they are. But I explained yesterday, I understand the psychology behind it, because in an incredibly flawed, watered-down Eastern Conference, who knows, maybe James Harden's repeated failures in the playoffs won't matter as much next to Donovan Mitchell. Or going against a Celtics team that doesn't all of a sudden have Jason Tatum, perhaps. Because it sure looks like Jason Tatum's coming back. Why do you acquire Nikola Vucevic if you're not loading up to try and win a title this year? So I think the most impactful is, because there's no doubt, forget the playoff part of this, Cleveland is the most improved team in the NBA now from what they were before the trade deadline season came along. They're the most improved team. Now, you could argue that Washington would rival them, but where is that getting them? So I guess it's Cleveland is relevant and made themselves better. Washington may have made themselves the most better that better than anybody else in the NBA, have improved more than anybody else in the NBA, but what is it going to get them? But I think my favorite moves of the deadline, OKC and the Celtics. Sneaky, not flashy moves by any stretch of the imagination, not huge names. Celtics get the big man. They're basketball trades. That's what I like. So many trade deadline moves are not basketball moves. They're because we're tanking, because we're dumping salary, because we're doing this. The Celtics and the Thunder made moves. And Cleveland did this too. But they made basketball moves. We're addressing this need. We're setting ourselves up for future success. Those were my two favorite moves of the deadline, Celtics and Oklahoma City. Not the biggest moves, but my favorite ones. Hunter Tyson being moved, not among my favorite moves, although it was necessary. And I'm not saying because it's a huge loss, losing Hunter Tyson. I'm just saying it's not a real needle moving one way or another trade for the Nuggets. But that's what they did today. That means Spencer Jones will get his full-fledged NBA contract. Congratulations to him. He is going to blow up on LinkedIn even more than he already has. And then we can kind of sift through the NBA thrift shop here and go thrifting and see if there's anybody that you think can help the Denver Nuggets. So we'll do that over the coming days as well. Appreciate your patronage. My thanks to Corey Roldan of KKTV for joining me. I will be joining him this evening on KKTV 11 if you want to check that out. And after that, I'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 here on KVOR and Extra Sports 1300.